My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper cup of coffee the technician had given me. "Ma'am," he said, not looking up from the monitor, his voice flat in a way that scared me more than shouting would have. "Leave right now. Go somewhere public. Don't go home." I looked at the screen behind him, at the frozen frame of my own backyard, my own patio furniture, my own life, and at the two people standing in it who were never supposed to be there. "What did you find?" I whispered. He turned the monitor away from me. "You need to call someone before I show you this," he said. "Someone who isn't in this footage. My name is Diane Kessler. I'm 63 years old, and for 31 years I ran Kessler & Associates, a small accounting firm out of a converted house on Maple Street that I built from a single client, my own dentist, into a practice that employed 11 people and served over 400 small businesses across the county. I sold it 2 years ago for $2.1 million. Not because I wanted to, because my hands had started shaking too much to trust my own numbers, and I'd rather walk away with dignity than be the accountant who made the mistake everyone whispered about. That money, plus the house I paid off in 2019, plus $340,000 in retirement accounts, made me, for the first time in my life, comfortable. Not rich. Comfortable. Enough to help my son Marcus, 34, and his wife Renata, 31, with the down payment on their house. Enough to pay for my granddaughter Lily's dance lessons. Enough to sleep at night. I thought that comfort was safe. I thought my family was safe. I was wrong about both. It started on a Tuesday in March, at what should have been an unremarkable family dinner. Renata came to the table in a blouse I recognized, silk, cream-colored, with small pearl buttons, because I'd seen it in a boutique window downtown with a price tag of $480. She wore it the way people wear things they want noticed, smoothing the fabric at her waist twice before she even sat down. Marcus poured wine. Not the $12 bottle we usually had on Tuesdays. A Bordeaux, the label facing out like a small announcement. "Big week?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Renata smiled at Marcus first, then at me. "Just treating ourselves," she said. "You only live once, right, Diane?" She'd started calling me Diane 6 months earlier. "Never, Mom. Never even Diane. Is that okay?" Just Diane, dropped into sentences like a small, precise correction, a reminder that I was not, and would never be, the kind of mother-in-law who got the warmer name. I didn't say anything. I just watched Marcus avoid my eyes and refill his glass a little too fast. That night, driving home, I did the math I'd done professionally for 3 decades. Marcus made $71,000 a year as a project manager. Renata worked part-time at a marketing firm, maybe $28,000. Between the mortgage I'd helped with, 2 car payments, and Lily's private school tuition, their numbers didn't come close to matching a $480 blouse and a $95 bottle of wine on a Tuesday. Something was funding a life they couldn't afford. And 3 weeks later, I'd find out what. I still had access to a joint family emergency fund account I'd set up years earlier, $50,000 I'd contributed to for genuine emergencies, with Marcus as co-signer for convenience. I rarely checked it. That week, something made me look. $31,400 had been withdrawn over 4 months. Cash withdrawals. Transfers to an account I didn't recognize. I called Marcus, kept my voice light, almost apologetic. "Hey, sweetheart, I noticed some withdrawals on the emergency account. Probably just me forgetting something, but can you walk me through it?" He didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that. Renata's been consulting on the side, doing some independent contractor work, and there were some upfront licensing and certification fees, plus we had to cover a gap while her invoices processed. It's all going to pay itself back once her contracts finalize. Totally normal in the consulting world, Mom. Cash flow lag is standard." It was fluent, confident, the kind of answer designed to make a woman in her 60s feel foolish for asking. I said, "Oh, of course, that makes sense," and thanked him for explaining. Then I hired a private investigator. 2 weeks later, I sat across from a woman named Priya Anand in a coffee shop, and she slid a manila folder across the table. There was no consulting business. There was no LLC, no invoices, no clients. The $31,400 had gone toward a leased BMW X5, a Cancun trip for 4, Marcus, Renata, and another couple, and strangely, 3 separate payments to a company called Bellwood Property Holdings. Bellwood, Priya said, is a shell company. I traced the registered agent. It leads back to a residential address. She turned the paper around. It was my address. I didn't confront them yet. I wanted to understand what Bellwood Property Holdings meant before I moved. So the following Sunday, when I came over to drop off cookies for Lily, I let myself in through the side door, the one that opened near the kitchen without triggering the front bell, and I heard them before they saw me. She's not going to notice, Renata was saying, laughing, ice clinking in a glass. She barely checks anything anymore. Did you see her hands shaking at dinner? She can't even hold a fork steady. In 2 years, she won't remember what year it is, let alone what's in some account. Marcus's laugh was quieter, almost guilty, but he didn't correct her. She trusts me, he said. Signed power of attorney paperwork years ago, remember? For just in case. We just need her to sign one more thing, and Bellwood owns the house outright. Then it's ours to refinance, sell, whatever we want, and she never has to know until it's done. I stood in that kitchen doorway with a tray of cookies going cold in my hands, and I felt something in my chest go very, very still. I went home and pulled every document I'd signed in the last 3 years. Buried in a stack from 18 months earlier, mixed in with legitimate tax paperwork Marcus had helped me organize after my hand tremor made filing difficult, was a durable power of attorney, notarized, granting Marcus broad authority over my financial and property decisions. I didn't remember signing anything that broad. I remembered signing something Marcus described as, just so I can help you with bills if your hands act up. That's not what this document said. I called the notary listed on the form. Her name was Carla DeJess. When I described the situation, there was a long pause. Ma'am, she said carefully, I don't recognize your name from my log for that date. I'll need to check my records. 2 days later she called back, her voice tight. I have no record of notarizing that document. My seal number was used, but I did not witness that signature. The power of attorney was forged. I asked Priya to dig deeper into Bellwood Property Holdings. What she found stopped me cold. Bellwood wasn't just a shell for stealing my house. It had already taken out a $180,000 home equity line of credit against my property 6 weeks earlier, using the forged power of attorney as authorization. The funds had been transferred to Bellwood's account, then split. Some to Marcus and Renata's personal accounts, some, $60,000 of it, to a man named Todd Whitmore. Todd Whitmore, it turned out, was Renata's brother, a man with 2 prior fraud-adjacent civil judgments against him in another state. This wasn't a couple living slightly beyond their means. This was a coordinated plan to strip $180,000 of equity from my home, using a forged legal document, funneling money to a relative with a history of financial schemes, while calling me Diane, over Bordeaux, and joking that I wouldn't notice because my hands shook. I had every piece of evidence I needed to go to the police immediately. I didn't, because paperwork gets contested. Because Marcus could claim confusion, claim I'd verbally authorized things I'd forgotten, claim my declining faculties made my own testimony unreliable. The same lie they were already telling themselves about me. I needed something they couldn't argue with. I needed them on record, in their own voices, admitting intent. So I decided to give them exactly what they thought they already had, a fragile old woman. I started forgetting things on purpose. Small things, at first, repeating a question I'd just asked, calling Lily by my sister's name, and correcting myself with visible confusion. I let my hand tremor become the center of every visit, holding cups with both hands, apologizing for spilling things I hadn't spilled. I bought a cane I didn't need and used it inconsistently, dramatic in front of them, forgotten when I thought I was alone, so Renata would notice the gaps and feel clever for noticing. Inside, I was sharper than I'd been in years. Every performance was a calculation. Let them believe the con is working. Let them get greedy. Greedy people get careless, and careless people talk. Marcus, honey, I said one Sunday, voice small. I feel like I signed something recently, some papers, but I can't remember what. Was that important? I watched relief flood his face. No, Mom, don't worry about it. Just some routine stuff. You don't need to think about it. He believed I was disappearing. That belief was about to cost him everything. I installed a discreet camera system around my backyard patio and kitchen window, framed to my son as a security upgrade after that break-in on Ferndale, which had genuinely happened 2 streets over. Marcus even helped me pick the brand, laughing about how tech-savvy I still was for an old lady, never suspecting the footage would run continuously, backed up to a cloud account he didn't know existed. I also asked Priya to help me set a very specific bait, a new document, drawn up by my actual attorney, that appeared, through a carefully misplaced printed draft on my kitchen counter, to be a full transfer of my house into a trust that named Marcus as sole beneficiary, effective immediately upon my signature. It was real stationery. It was fake in every legal sense. My attorney had drafted it purely as bait, never intending it to be filed. I left it out on a Thursday, knowing Renata came by on Thursdays to check on me, while Marcus was at work. Then I waited. My phone sat face down on the counter that evening, buzzing softly every few minutes with motion alerts from the patio camera. I sat in my reading chair with a book I wasn't reading, watching the little red light blink, feeling my pulse in my throat. At 6:40 p.m., the phone buzzed again. This time longer. A conversation. I let 2 more weeks pass before I acted. Enough time for the trust document to work its way into a conversation I now had recorded in full, Renata's voice clear as a bell. She already thinks she signed it. We just tell her she did. Worst case, we say she's confused. Who's going to believe a woman who can't remember her own granddaughter's name? Enough time for Marcus, on camera in my own backyard, to say to his wife, once the trust clears, we sell within 6 months. Todd already has a buyer lined up. Mom won't even know until she's moved into assisted living, and it's already done. I chose Lily's 8th birthday party to end it. 40 people, string lights, a rented arch of pink balloons in my own backyard. The same patio the cameras had been recording for 6 weeks. Renata found her moment mid-party, a champagne flute in hand, laughing loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Diane gets a little confused these days, she said to Marcus's aunt, not troubling to lower her voice. We're handling all her affairs now. It's really for the best. She can't be trusted with the details anymore. I walked over slowly, cane in hand, voice soft. What details, dear? Oh, nothing, don't worry about it, Renata said, patting my arm like I was a child. I set the cane down against the table. Deliberately. The sound of wood against wrought iron was small, but it cut through the chatter, and a few heads turned. I'd like everyone to hear this, actually, I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Because I think Renata's right that some things need to come out into the open. I took out my phone and set it on the table, screen up. 6 weeks ago, I recorded this conversation in my own backyard. I pressed play. Renata's laughing voice filled the patio. She already thinks she signed it. Who's going to believe a woman who can't remember her own granddaughter's name? The party went silent except for the string lights humming faintly overhead. There's also this, I said, holding up a folded paper, the forged power of attorney. Notarized, according to this seal, by Carla D. Jess. Carla has confirmed in writing that she never witnessed my signature. This document is a forgery. Marcus's face had gone the color of the tablecloth. Mom, you don't understand the context. I understand $180,000 in equity was pulled from my house using this forged document. I said, still calm, still quiet. And that $60,000 of it went to your brother, Todd, who has 2 prior fraud judgments against him in Ohio. I tore the forged power of attorney in half, then in quarters, and set the pieces on the table next to the king. 2 men in plain clothes stepped forward from near the gate. Detectives Priya had arranged to be present, waiting on my signal, holding a warrant built from the forged notarization, the bank records, and the recording. Marcus Kessler, Renata Kessler, one of them said, "We need you to come with us to answer some questions about a home equity fraud investigation." Renata's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the patio stones, the same stones the cameras had watched for 6 weeks. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. I just picked my cane back up, because for the first time all evening, I actually needed it. Within 4 months, Marcus was charged with forgery, financial exploitation of an elderly person, and fraud in connection with the $180,000 home equity line. He pled to a reduced charge and received 3 years probation, restitution of $180,000, and a permanent mark on his record that ended his career as a project manager at a firm requiring financial trust and bonding. Renata was charged as a co-conspirator. Her marketing firm quietly let her go 2 weeks after the arrest hit the local paper's police blotter. Her name, once dropped so casually as Diane across my dinner table, now sat beside the word fraud in searchable court records. Todd Whitmore, facing a third fraud-related judgment in as many years, was the only one who saw real jail time. 14 months, on a separate charge that stacked with his prior record. The marriage didn't survive the arrest. Renata moved out within 6 weeks, taking nothing but 2 suitcases and the BMW lease, which she defaulted on within 90 days. I forgave one debt in this story, and only one. My former firm's junior bookkeeper, a young woman named Aisha who had unknowingly processed some of Bellwood's paperwork under Marcus's instruction, thinking it was a legitimate client account, came to me in tears, certain she'd be implicated. I told the detectives everything I knew about her innocence, wrote a statement clearing her, and helped her find work at a firm I trusted. She hadn't chosen her employer's crimes. She didn't deserve to carry them. And Lily, my granddaughter, 8 years old and innocent of every bit of this, I made sure never lost her dance lessons, her school, or her grandmother. Some things greed doesn't get to touch. 9 months later, on a night the weather service had called the first real storm of the season, my doorbell rang at 9:40 p.m. Marcus stood on my porch, soaked through, a duffel bag at his feet, his face thinner than I remembered. "Mom," he said, voice cracking, "I have nowhere else to go. Renata's gone. I lost the apartment. I just need somewhere to stay while I figure things out. Please." I looked at him for a long moment. My son, still my son, rain running down a face I used to wipe clean as a toddler. "I loved you enough to give you everything I had," I said, my voice steady, not unkind, not cruel. "You decided that wasn't enough, and you tried to take the rest by force, while calling me confused to my face in my own kitchen. I hope you rebuild something honest. But it won't be rebuilt here." I closed the door, gently. No slam. Just the quiet, final click of a lock. My husband Daniel, who had stood beside me through every hour of the investigation, who never once told me I was overreacting or being paranoid, put his hand on my shoulder as I stood in the hallway. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be," I said. And for the first time in a year, I believed it. Here's what I learned, the hard way, at 63 years old. People who are planning to take something from you will often tell you exactly what they think of you first, through the little insults, the dismissiveness, the assumption that you're too weak or too confused to notice. Don't argue with that assumption. Use it. Let them underestimate you long enough to show you exactly who they are, on the record, in their own words. Family doesn't get a free pass to steal from you just because it's uncomfortable to call it what it is. If someone in your life has ever underestimated you the way Marcus and Renata underestimated me, tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this story hit home for you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to fight back quietly and win.